I am so excited today to have Jeff J. Hunter on the podcast. Jeff is the founder and chief growth officer of Branded Media, where he creates solid, recognizable, legacy driven personal brands for legitimate companies and influencers. Branded Media is on its way to being the #1 branding agency in the world. Formerly a Fortune 500 IT project manager, Jeff is the founder and king of outsourcing at Virtual Assistants at VA Staffer, a team of 150 plus virtual assistants based in the Philippines. He's the founder of the AI Persona Method, certified AI consultant program with over 100 AI consultants. He's a digital futurist who's into AI, blockchain, and remote teams. With a column on entrepreneur.com, he's recently been featured as a main story in Business Insider and featured in this month's episode of Success Magazine alongside Tony Robbins. Oh. Jeff, I'm so glad you are here, man. Thanks for being on the show.
You know what? It's been an incredible year. I think we're starting fresh. I think that we have this incredible moment of just realignment. And, even you just reading off that bio just makes me think about my own realignment that I've been doing for myself. And I think it's really important as leaders that we reassess what our goals and priorities are, because even listening to that, I'm like, I probably should redo that a little bit.
Oh, so good. So good. Well, and I think evaluation is how you get better.
Yeah.
Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
Yeah, let's start there. I want to look back at your journey so far. I would love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey in your development as a leader. Jeff, how did you get started?
First I have to give a shout out to my grandpa. The reason why I always say I'm Jeff J. Hunter, my middle name Jesse, is after my grandfather, he passed away back in 2016. And but he always pushed me to learn IT, to learn automation, to learn computers. And when I was only 12 years old, I remember I had my very first computer, and it was not great, but my grandpa, he bought a 2-speed CD burner at his house.
Awesome.
No one had a CD burner back then. This is in the early 90s, right? And it was interesting because he actually used to drop me off at this computer store that was about 2 blocks away from the house. And I would work there for free. I would just get off of school. I'd go over there. I'd learn from the technicians and build computers and do all that stuff. And I always knew that I'm a very hands-on type person, but I just always had this fascination with computers since I was a little kid, because ever since, my parents worked a lot. I don't know if a lot of people can relate to this, but my parents, they worked so much, they didn't have a lot of time for me. And my babysitter was my Nintendo, right? So as growing up, I've always just had this, this fondness towards, computers and just what you can get them to do. And it's interesting because as I become a leader, I've realized how hard it was for me to actually get used to humans, right?
A little different than machines, right?
Yeah. And, through my career, I worked at a computer store. Then I worked as an IT, basically for a private hospital group as a network administrator, setting up like VPN tunnels and things for doctors and lawyers and whatever. And then I actually became an IT person for a school. I was like their tech, on site at a school. I ended up becoming the IT coordinator for an entire school district. And then I became an IT project manager at a Fortune 500 company before I took that crazy dive to become an entrepreneur myself.
Wow.
And I think that there's a natural progression in becoming a leader. I don't believe it's something that you're naturally born with. It's funny because when I speak on stage and I'm leading teams, and doing consulting and things like that, people always say, "Wow, Jeff, you're such a natural." And there's a little bit of inside me that wants to laugh when they say that, because they're like, they only knew how unnatural that is for me.
I think that's so well said, because so often people will look at somebody like you, somebody who's on stage who just seems so comfortable as they're speaking. I mean, I watched you speak at an event we were both at, and uh, you're so comfortable. And I think from the outside, somebody looks at that and like, oh wow, I'm not comfortable like that. It must not be natural for me like it is for him. And so I think to hear you say that is encouraging for a lot of people.
Let me give an analogy. First off, I am definitely, and this is something that people will argue with me till the day I die. I am an introvert, and and from the day I was born, I was really quiet, um, rotten, but quiet. Uh,
I
I
could
had a
never, I could never imagine that.
yeah, I had a little sister, 1 year younger than me. We didn't really, we didn't hang out. We didn't, like, I was kind of just on my own island, and we moved around so much as a kid. I never really had like a best friend.
Hmm.
And I always had that anxiety of meeting new people, and it sucked. Honestly, it just
Yeah.
sucks. And you have a childhood where you move around a lot. You never have a friend longer than a couple years. My mom was a traveling nurse, my dad was a Marine, so
Hmm. Wow.
you just don't have that security of having that childhood friend.
Yeah.
And I never was really comfortable around people. Some of it, I would say, growing up, looking back, is probably sports helped.
Hmm.
I did my I got pushed again by my grandpa, and actually my sister. I felt peer pressured by my sister because my sister was going into sports, and I'm like, dude, my little sister, right? So I did swimming, I did water polo, which are very gruesome sports, by the way.
Uh,
Water polo, probably one of the worst. People don't even know how gruesome water polo is.
oh.
But the thing is, it's almost like everything. When I'll give you an example of my son, who's 12 years old. When I, I've always known at a very young age, when he was born, he's always been tall. Like, my son right now is 5'10", he's 12,
Hmm.
right?
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how tall he's going to be. Taller than me, I assume.
Wow.
But he's like 5'10" right now, and he has always hated basketball. Shame, right? I'm like, dude, the one advantage you got, the one sport, right? Like, you don't even have to be good. All you gotta do is raise your hands, and they're gonna put you on the team, right? And when I first put him out there and we played basketball together, he hated it. He would literally kick and scream and cry, and he wouldn't want
Oh
to do it.
wow.
When he was like 8 or 9 years old, he would just really throw a tantrum, and he hated it. Same with
Oh my
soccer.
goodness.
We put him in soccer. We're trying to find something he was good at, and of course, he was good at nothing. And I
Hmm.
blame myself. As a father, like, I didn't really spend a whole lot of time with him with eye-hand coordination and stuff. He's kind of, and because he's so tall, he looks like a giraffe out there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, after a while, he started learning how to make some shots. He started doing a couple things. Guess what? Now he's starting to like it. So in reality, what happens is your confidence isn't natural. You don't have a natural confidence. I mean, some
Hmm.
people might, but I believe that if you're someone who wants to become confident, you work on your competence first, right?
Hmm.
Once you start making those goals, once you start making those shots, you get a little bit more confident in what you're doing. And it's the same thing with public speaking. It's the same thing with being a leader, right? Like, when you're a leader, first thing you think of the first time you've ever had to lead something, you're like, I'm not qualified to do this. I'm not a leader. People always talk about imposter syndrome. It's
Yeah.
called the truth, folks.
That's right. It's reality. That's right.
Well, imposter syndrome always blows me away, because I mean, sure, there's a level of it that I believe is a truth. Like, if you are truly, like, for me, I would definitely say I've spoken on stage probably 100 times. I've been on hundreds of podcasts. Like, I would say that I'm very competent at delivering a message and speaking, but
Yeah.
I will tell you that still to this day, I get nervous when I go on stage, even though most people would
Hmm.
think, no way, dude. Like, you have done this so many times. I get nervous every time. I want to cry. You saw me cry on stage,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
So that's the thing. If you want to become confident as a leader or confident in anything for that matter, you have to start working on your competence first.
Hmm. I love that. And I think, when it comes to the confidence of speaking on stage, use that example. I heard somebody say this once, and I mean, like you, hundreds of stages, hundreds of times of being in front of people with a microphone on. I mean, this is just part of what we do. But every time there's a little bit of apprehension. Every time there's a little bit of nervousness. And for a long time I wondered about that. Like, well, why is that? Like you, I'm an introvert. But is that normal to continue even at this point, even 30 years in, to still have that little bit of nervousness? And I heard somebody say something that really helped me a lot. They said, if you're not a little bit nervous when you stand up in front of people, then you are not fully engaged in whatever it is you're talking about.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, man, that's solid.
Yeah.
And it really helped me to bear that in mind. And every time I do that, I still to this day, when I stand up, I remember that. Yeah, this matters. Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, I want to make a difference in people's lives when I'm talking. And so it's okay to have a little bit of that. And maybe there's somebody listening who needed to hear that, who needed that encouragement from you. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing.
And the other thing is too, is like, how do you expect people to take you seriously if you don't take yourself seriously?
That's true, right? That's right. If you're blowing it off, if you're just winging it because it doesn't matter that much, why would they take it seriously?
Right.
So let's talk about how you made the turn. I mean, for a lot of people, a Fortune 500 IT project manager, I mean, that's a fantastic career. That's the end game for a lot of people. Like they're like, okay, I've hit it, I've arrived. But you didn't stop there. You dove into entrepreneurship. Why? Why
Well,
would
the
you do
crazy
that?
part is that I went to Stan State, California State University out here in California. And it's kind of a commuter campus. I'd say like 80-90% of people that go to that university, they commute.
Hmm.
It's very rural. They have dorms and stuff, but in all reality, I only live 25 minutes away from the school, so I drove, right?
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is I always knew, I didn't know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, flat out. I
Hmm.
didn't know.
Hmm.
But there were little signs here and there. Like, for example, I always knew that I was a bit of an overachiever. And by the way, this is a trait that you can learn. Being an overachiever,
Hmm.
it's just not suddenly
That's
for the
good.
status quo, right? It's like knowing that you are destined to do more than what you're doing now. And I hope that
That's good.
everybody in their life wakes up and feels that way, right?
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
Now, when I was going to college, I always had a full-time job. And by the time I graduated college, by the way, it took me over 10 years to graduate college. Okay. Yeah. I have I could have been like Van Wilder. I could have had my own cart there, my own designated parking spot for 10 years I was there. And what was really interesting to me is that everyone that was going to school, like that was their job.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't. And I feel like, by the way, the education system needs to go back to what I'm about to say. I had a job and I was upskilling. I was learning
Yes.
something while I had my job. So actually, by the time I had graduated college, I had already been an IT coordinator for a school district, which was already, by the way, a 75K job, and a $130,000 job as an IT project manager for Fortune 500. I had just got the job before. Matter of fact, I had to sign a paper that I was about to graduate because to get the job, I had to be graduated,
Wow.
right? And even the IT coordinator job, it was required that I had a degree, and I didn't have my degree yet, but I had something that people really wanted that was more valuable than a degree, which was experience,
Hmm.
competence.
Hmm.
See,
And
here
there
we
we come
go.
back to that. That's right.
So what happened was, and this is how it all came down, is that every time, by the way, I want to put this out there. I wasn't looking for another thing. I
Hmm.
was very happy with my job. I loved my job. I still to this day say it was the best and the last job I'll ever have.
Wow.
Being an IT project manager was a dream come true for me. It comes with a status. Matter of fact, my job title was project manager III, Roman numeral 3. Like I was up there, right? Like, and the crazy part is I had actually quit just literally 2 weeks after I put in my resignation, 2 weeks after they had given me a promotion to project manager 3.
Oh my goodness.
Right. It was your yearly it was my yearly
Wow.
evaluation. I had walked into the room, and here was the pivot point. There were 3 main instances that happened that really hurt me. Number 1, my grandfather in 2015 was diagnosed with I'm sorry, my father in 2015 was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and was
Mm.
told that he had probably until Christmas, or maybe he wouldn't make it to Christmas. Okay. I tried to put in a request to go back home and just go to California because as part of my job, I had to move from California up to Portland, Oregon. And they said that I would have to be there for about 2 years. Well, 4 years later, I
Mm.
was still there. Okay.
Wow.
I said, hey, guys, I'll keep doing this. I'll even pay for my own plane tickets to go back and forth because it was 80% home, 20% travel type job. I
Mm.
could work from home, manage projects, travel on site for kickoffs, travel on site for go lives. I'd be good, right? And I was a pioneer in remote teams. So I was doing things more remotely than anyone in the company at the time. I was actually one of the top 5 project managers 3 quarters in a row at Philips Electronics, where I worked. And what ended up happening was I started seeing that they didn't care about me. That was the key.
Mm.
So strike number 2 was in November of that same year in 2015. My grandfather was diagnosed with hay fever. He had a lung infection. He was 94 years old.
Oh my
So
goodness.
exactly. I knew something was up. My aunt called me, said, dude, you better figure this out. He's not doing well. Again, I asked if I could transfer back to California. They denied my request for the second time, told me they didn't have anyone to replace me. So
Mm.
the third one was when my wife and I actually announced that we had a baby on the way, 10 weeks. It was January, Portland. It was one of the very few times it snowed in Portland. We built a snowman, and it was a figurine of myself and my wife and my 3-year-old son at the time. And then we had a little baby. We had the mommy holding a baby. We put a little thing over it, and it went viral on social media, and everybody was so happy for us. And then literally next week we lost that child.
Oh my
We
goodness.
had a miscarriage, and they wouldn't even let me take the day off to go with my wife and go to the hospital during that
Oh my
hard time.
goodness.
Yeah, so I was actually flown to Alaska to kick off a project. So what was really, really challenging, all that, and this is not a very proud moment to me to admit, but even those 3 things were not enough to make me leave my job.
Mm.
The thing that made me leave my job was that they promoted me. Remember I told you how they promoted me to a project manager 3? Well,
Yeah.
what they did was they put me on a whole new salary scale. I went from an hourly employee to a salary employee. But here's the problem. I was working about 32 hours of overtime.
Oh my
32%,
goodness.
uh, 32% overtime, which now on a salary, I was making 0 overtime. Overtime accounted for a big percentage of my pay. And when you work hard, you feel like you should be rewarded hard. And I had a conversation with my boss, if he's listening. Um, Thank you for kicking me out the door and making me do something better with my life. His name was Jim. Jim looked at me, and I said, well, Jim, I'm kind of excited to be back on salary. And I said this in not a condescending way, but a reaffirming way, that if I'm on salary, I'm not working overtime. And I said, Jim, I'm going to make sure that my phone's turned off from until 9 till 8 a.m. And I'll log off around 5 p.m. And he says, Jeff, now you know this isn't an 8 to 5 job. And I said, but you want to pay me like it's an 8 to 5 job. Oh, here's the best part. I got my first paycheck. Yeah, it was over 25% less. Even with a raise, a 25% raise, it was 25% less because they cut out all that overtime, which was paid at time and a half. And if they
Wow.
didn't make me work and travel on Sundays, it was double time.
Oh my goodness.
So here's the moral of the story, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, my dad is still alive today. Chances are he's going to die from something else. Matter of fact, he just got his scan yesterday. I'll have to see how those results came out, but he does his every 6 months. He does some scans and things like that. But thanks to God, chemotherapy, and my mom who works in radiation therapy, he's good.
That's
Um,
awesome.
My grandpa unfortunately did pass away though. But the point is here is, the transition to entrepreneurship was kind of a kick in the ass. It
Yeah.
was kind of like me realizing they didn't care about me. They literally took 25% of my salary with a fake promotion,
Mhm.
giving me more work, literally not denying my requests to move back to California twice, not allowing me to see and be there for my wife during a very horrible procedure to remove our miscarriage. And it finally set me over the edge. And it was actually February 29th of 2016, leap day.
Mhm.
And I said, God's playing a funny trick on me. And I took the leap. I took the leap
Wow.
February 29th of 2016. At that time, I had already built kind of a side hustle, the virtual assistant business, for about a year and a half, 2 years, because I basically found out that I hated doing a lot of project management stuff. I was a busy guy.
Mhm.
And I hired my very first virtual assistant who was helping me do documentation, things like that. And I couldn't believe that's how I became a top 5 project manager, by the way. That was my little secret, my little hack. And I started realizing that there was an opportunity here to actually build remote teams for other people, to build what I call an executive assistant to really help with the day-to-day of just busy leaders. And that has changed my life, obviously. I have now 100 plus people that work for me for that company. I have hundreds of clients, and I've literally helped thousands of busy CEOs, live a real life instead of becoming a slave to their business. There's
That
the
is
story.
remarkable. Remarkable.
Whew.
I think there's so many people who are afraid of making that leap. And I think your story is so encouraging because it illustrates something that we hear people say, but until you experience it, I think it feels a little less real. And that is that as long as you're working for somebody else, you're not in charge.
Mm.
You can't really call the shots. You don't get to choose. And I think your choice to take that step or that leap, I think has yielded everything that has come these last 8.5 years.
And by the way, I just want to point some encouragement out for you guys because, some people think it's going to be rainbows and sunshine and roses. And you know what happened when I left that job?
Mm,
It was 2 o'clock in the morning, coming up on 3 o'clock in the morning, had just switched from February 28th to February 29th. I had written my resignation letter 6 hours before that. It was in my email inbox. It was drafted, and my finger was shaking over that send button.
mm,
I'm getting a little emotional.
yeah.
I remember praying. I remember calling my grandpa. I
Mm,
remember calling my dad, calling some of my colleagues even. And when I spoke to my wife, that was the final straw. My wife said, we'll figure it out. They don't care about you. And how long are you going to tolerate this?
mm.
And I warned her. I said, this means, I didn't build a nest egg. Like, we're going to be baroque. We'll probably have to, to make this business in the Philippines profitable, I'll probably have to go over there and live there for 30 days. And she said, let's go. And
Wow.
I basically took the last of the money that I had. We moved in with my grandpa for the last month of his life in a tiny little one bedroom. Me, my wife, and my 3-year-old. We got to spend that entire month with my grandfather, who had never even got to really meet his grandson, his great grandson, who, by the way, I named my son Jesse after him.
That's awesome.
And it was one of the most humiliating, humbling moments of my life, going from $100,000 cushy 6-figure job, company car, company computer, company phone, company credit card, company printer. I mean, I got a new car every year and a half. Like, it was just like a dream job. Like, everyone would love to have my job. Like, I would love to have that job back if it paid more.
Yeah, right.
And here's the thing. I left everything. I didn't even have a phone because I had used my company phone for 4 years, right? Like, why would I have my own?
Right.
And I moved in and we were completely flat broke. And we went to the Philippines for 30 days and built out the business. I hired a consultant in the Philippines to help dial in what I needed to do with the team to make it profitable and shift my culture. And sometimes you just have to jump off the cliff to figure things out. Sometimes you have to build the rocket while it's flying.
Yes.
And that is one of as a leader, I am not a carrot person. I'm a stick person. If you guys know that personality type.
That's good. Yeah.
I am not excited, and I don't wake up every day thinking about how much money I'm going to make or how much power I'm going to have or how much authority I'm going to create, or like, I don't wake up like that. For me personally, I would wake up every day playing video games, and as long as I had money, I wouldn't care. I have DoorDash. I wouldn't even leave, right? I'm a stick person. I'm not. You can't dangle a carrot in front of me and get me excited about dangling or anything. But what does motivate me is becoming a failure, not being able to provide,
Yeah.
letting my team down, letting my family down, not being a good example for my kids. That's the stuff that motivates me.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to have some serious pain to do something good. So for those of you who are on the edge, first off, build a little nest egg. I wish I would have done that.
Good plan. That's right.
I just want to throw it out there. If you're listening to this, don't quit your job. Yeah. All right. Make sure you got a little nest egg. That's the one thing I wish I would have done, because it was like kind of like I was just so upset about everything that happened. I didn't have to quit then. I didn't have to quit. But obviously I don't regret it. I got to spend the last month of my grandfather's life together. My son got to meet his great grandfather, who they had never really got to hang out outside of, a once in a while travel down, and to live with him every day was totally worth it. So
That's so good.
For those of you listening, I just want to say, like, if you're in a situation where you have a business that's draining you and it sucks, you want to do something different. If you have a job, and it's not fulfilling you and you want to do more, like, start a side hustle, start building something up, start getting some revenue in, start validating what you're doing. And the easiest way to validate anything is to make money doing it. If you ain't making money doing it, you've got to figure that part out first.
Yeah. No, it's so good. You illustrate something that I tell my clients all the time. You have what you tolerate. If you don't like what you have, change what you tolerate. And that's what you
agree.
did.
I agree. You don't get what you deserve in life. You get what you tolerate. Absolutely.
Exactly right. So now you are a sought after speaker. You are a business leader, owner of multiple different businesses. You are a thought leader in the AI space. I mean, all this just in 8.5 years after making that leap. A digital futurist, which I like that term, I have to say.
Yeah.
The idea of looking forward into what could be and preparing now for what is not yet, it seems to be a superpower of yours. Would you agree?
Interesting you say that, because that's, growing up, I was pretty poor. When you have a traveling nurse mom and an ex-Marine, I mean, there were definitely people more poor, but let's just say my dad wasn't going down to the store and buying me whatever CD I wanted, right?
Right.
And God forgive me, but how it all started was when we got our first computer. And the reason we got our first computer was because my dad was working at a computer store, and that was a job that he had. And he I think my one thing I will say I learned from my dad is he's a really good negotiator. So he kind of negotiated, well, if I'm going to sell computers, I got to have one, right?
That's good.
So he had this computer and it was old, you know. I mean, it's even back then, it wasn't the newest. It was whatever the guy had laying around so we could have,
Yeah.
right? And I remember going to, if you remember this, Warehouse Music. That was
Oh yeah. Oh
in the
yeah.
90s, right? Warehouse Music, and Warehouse Music had the nicest magazine rack. Remember those?
Oh yeah.
Oh, Barnes and Noble still has them today. If you can find a Barnes and Noble, they
That's
have
right.
really nice magazine racks. And there was this one magazine that I loved, and as soon as I say it, you're gonna laugh, knowing about me. PC Gamer magazine.
Oh, I had many issues of that, no doubt.
And you remember, my friend, that was an expensive magazine.
Yes, it was.
Back then, it was a $20 magazine.
Exactly.
1990s $20. That's like $60 today, right? And the thing about this magazine, and you remember this, they don't do this today. So depending on who's listening, they used to have in the very beginning, you know, in the center of that magazine was a demo disc.
Yes.
There was a CD, a physical
Yes.
CD. And boy, I'll tell you what, I was that horrible kid who came after school to Warehouse to see the new one, and I would open up that magazine and I would just gently rip that little demo
Oh,
magazine.
oh
I was a
no.
horrible person.
Oh, no.
God forgive me.
So when I came to get the magazine and opened it up and the disc was gone,
I'm that guy.
that was you.
That was me.
There-
Look, I never stole a candy bar. I never stole gum. I stole the free demo disc inside the PC Gamer magazine.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I would put that CD in that computer and I would drift away. I would imagine, I would try all the free games. And it wasn't just games on there, there would be apps. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
matter of fact, that was my first demo. I believe there was like a demo of like Dreamweaver, which was a web creative
Oh,
tool. And there used
yeah.
to be like all these apps for coding. And I would just download everything and try. And I was just mystified. And my imagination was captured by what other people could create.
Yes.
And that really embedded in me this deep rooted love for emerging technology. You know, like what people are creating. And I was so excited about just what kind of ideas people would come. And the sad part is, you know, a lot of those demo discs, a lot of those things, they failed.
Yeah.
You know,
That's right.
like all these apps and stuff, they failed. So I love the demo disc because those people were paying those magazines to put those demos in there.
Mhm.
Brilliant. By the way, this is how I love marketing, obviously. You know, looking back, you know, I didn't understand it when I was young, but now looking back, I'm like, wow, that was brilliant marketing, because there's still things that I've learned and appropriated into my own life from those demos.
Yes.
And emerging technology is one of those things where, like, for me, I've, you know, like, thank goodness, you know, there's a lot of people out there talking about, you know, crypto's back, right?
Right.
I mean, we hit all-time highs in 2024, Bitcoin up to 94,000. You know, things are looking up, you know, people got scared, they sold. I bought those bags, don't worry. I know what the future looks like because I've seen what's happening over the years. And because I've been in IT since I was literally a kid, you know, I can kind of see where the direction's going. And that's why, you know, and I actually, I'll send you a copy. I actually created a book a few years ago, back when it wasn't even cool, called The Zero to Hero Crypto Guide. It's on Amazon. Zero to Hero
Oh,
Crypto
wow.
Guide. It's a nice thick book. It's video game themed, of course.
Nice.
Right. And it just breaks down, you know, like what this emerging technology is. And, you know, that's where I started realizing where I said my competency is something that not only I need, I have calling to share. You know, God doesn't give you gifts for yourself,
That's right.
right?
That's exactly. It's
An
for the
apple
benefit of
doesn't
other
eat
people.
apples.
That's
An
right.
apple tree doesn't eat apples.
So
A
true.
pear tree doesn't eat pears, right?
So true.
It
I love
it,
that.
it drinks water. The apple, the fruit is for you walking by. And that is why, I believe if God has given you these gifts, it's your duty to share these gifts to better the lives of other people around you.
I love that.
And this is the beautiful part about marketing, is that you can actually help people around you and make money doing it. And I think a lot of Christians, by the way, not to
Yeah.
pull the Christian side of things in here, because I'm a pretty secular guy. I buy and sell from everyone and whatever walks of life you're in, But especially if you're a God-fearing person, you need to understand that your time, your effort, your energy is valuable, just like the
Yes.
barista. When you go down
Yes.
to Starbucks, and guess what happens? This is what I love about capitalism. You go down, you go to Starbucks, you pay somebody $6.25 for a freaking coffee, and you
Right.
say, thank you.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So the next time you actually do something that can really help somebody and you feel bad about charging that person money, I want you to think about that $6.25
Mm,
coffee at Starbucks that you say thank you, knowingly way overpaying for a cup of Joe. Okay?
so well said. So well said, man. I love that. Yeah, you are always growing. You are continually in a learning posture. You have to be to do what you've done
You
and
do.
learn what you're learning. I'm curious, like your businesses need you to lead at a higher level today than they did 5 years ago. And that same thing is going to be true 5 years from now. They're going to need you to have new skills and lead at a different level. How do you level up? How do you grow and develop those skills so that you'll be able to serve your clients and your team at the level that they're going to need you to be at?
Well, I have amazing friends like you. um, I I'm always so this I'm a all, one of my mentors. Shout out to Tony Grebmeyer.
Hmm.
He is an incredible dude, great mentor. Tony G, love him to death. I'm gonna send him this clip. But he told me many years ago when I had no idea what I was doing and I was a fresh entrepreneur, 2016, 2017. And he was the first person that I ever heard say that you don't know what you don't know.
That's so true.
And, a lot of times the CEOs, we're like, we have these blinders on,
Yes.
and we're just doing what we know. We're doing what we do. And the truth be told, in 2016, when I had left my corporate job, I was not the most qualified person to be the CEO of VA Staffer. I was the crazy dude who started the business, right? So I've had to become the CEO that they want me to be.
Yeah.
And ironically, over the years now, I'm the CEO that I want to be.
Yes.
I feel like there's an interesting
There's a
transition.
progression. There's a progression. Absolutely.
Like right now, I spend about 15 to 30 minutes a day on a multi-million-dollar business with 150 people. I spend
Mm.
50 to 30 minutes a day. Think about that.
Wow.
I have a team. The team does everything. I make the
Yes.
executive decisions. That's what a real CEO does. I make
That's right.
executive decisions. And I'm very, very cautious of the people I put around me now. That's the one thing I've
Mm.
learned. I'm very
That's brilliant.
cautious. I don't let a lot of people into the circle, and I don't hire people based on opportunity anymore. I
Mm.
make sure that people are vetted. I make sure that people can actually do what I want them to do. I do more of an
Yes.
experiential hiring process. So back to your question, I think that all of the things that I've learned have because I've learned from other people that actually did know what they're doing,
Mm.
but ironically at some point in time didn't know what they were doing, right? So
100%.
I feel like surrounding yourself with the right people, reading the right books. Some of the books that I've read. Can I do some plugs for some books I've read?
Please. Absolutely.
All right. So there's the E Myth, Michael Gerber.
Brilliant
Uh,
book.
really incredible book about leveraging time. Another one is the 4-hour work week, which, by the way, it sells the dream, doesn't tell you how, but it will implant in your head that 4-hour work week that I'm actually living today for a multi-million-dollar business. Okay. And then one of the ones that I really like, which is newer, is Dan Martell's Buy
Yeah.
Back Your Time.
Brilliant.
Okay. All of these things will lead you down the same path of realizing 3 core lies that we tell ourselves. Number 1, I'm too busy to get unbusy.
Oh,
Right.
so good.
Number 2 is that no one will actually care about my business as much as me. I have people that care more. I'm not gonna lie, I do, right? Like, I have to pretend that I care more to some of them. All right. And
That's great.
and the third, where you specialize in, is that I am not a good delegator. I am not a good leader. That I am not capable
Yeah.
of actually having true time freedom.
Yes.
Right? I think that is a big lie that people say. And by the way, to summarize that up, the phrase would be, it's easier if I just do it myself.
Oh, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard that. So true, man. That's so true. Jeff, every time we talk, I walk away having learned something. Every time we walk away, I walk away encouraged and optimistic about what's ahead for you because I believe your best days are still to come. I think the seeds that your grandpa planted in you, man, they're still growing. And I think your best days are ahead. And I can't wait to see what those are going to be. I know our listeners are going to want to connect with you, learn more about what you do, and just continue to learn as you continue on your journey. What is the best way for people to do that?
You know what? I would love to share with you guys, if you relate to what I said today, if you relate to what me and William are talking about, if you heard those last 3 lies and said, dang it, I've said that to myself. If
Yeah,
you right now believe that that is the truth, that you can't find the right people in your business that could actually care about it as much as you do, if you feel like you never can escape the job that you've created for yourself as an entrepreneur because you're too busy and you don't know how to delegate, you don't feel like you're a good leader, and it's just easier to do things yourself, right? If you don't have time to make time, I would invite you to check out a new series of books I've put out. I'm really excited. Actually, I just launched them. TheBusyCEO.com. TheBusyCEO.com. It'll have all my contact information there, but you're also going to see 3 pieces of 60-minute read content that I would love for you to check out. One of them is called the Busy CEO's Executive Assistant Playbook. It's the exact framework and literally the day-to-day schedule of exactly how I use my own executive assistant, Jackie, who you've had multiple conversations with.
Yeah,
Interactive.
absolutely.
The second book is called The Busy CEO's Time Freedom Blueprint. It's actually that map for you to understand how to stop being that busy CEO, how to start freeing up your time. And inside the book has downloadable resources, checklists, templates, guides, schedules, priority guides. Like, there's all sorts of things that you need to do so that when you fill it out, you're going to be like, wow, I actually have a plan for real time freedom. And the third book in the set is my favorite, being an AI emerging technology nerd. It's called AI for Business Strategy Guide. And it shows you very simple ways just to get your time back, make your team more productive. It has 100+ prompts that you can use, copy paste, and shows you exactly what tools to use to just make yourself and your team more productive. TheBusyCEO.com. There's my pitch.
That's so good. Man, I can't wait to dive into these. It sounds so brilliant. And I love your generosity in saying, hey, this is what's working for me. This is what I've learned. Take this, apply it, execute.
You know what I
I
would love
think
to
that's
do,
awesome.
actually?
Yeah.
Even if you're like, oh, Jeff's trying to sell me his book, I want to give you guys, I'm just going to give you guys 4 resources. I'm going to give you
Whoa.
guys, I actually have my Time Freedom Blueprint worksheet, All the things that are inside the book, I have a link I'm going to send you guys. It's thebusyceo.com/time freedom resources. I'm going to put the link. I'll put the link so that you guys can check it out, and you don't even have to buy the book. I just want you guys to start feeling what real freedom is like. If you honestly, genuinely wake up every day and you're like, man, I've created a job for yourself. If you are that person who feels like you're working 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week for someone else,
right.
I would invite you just to download these resources. You don't even have to buy the book. I just want you guys to have these resources. William's people are my people. I really genuinely just want, like you said, I just want to serve, and maybe you're at a point where you're like, I don't know about this Jeff guy, but I would invite you guys to try some of these resources for yourself. And I'm going to make sure wherever the link is around here, the podcast, we're going to make sure you have it.
We will put that in the show notes. Jeff, thanks for that generosity. And if you're not sure about this Jeff guy, I'll vouch for him. So check out what he's doing, read these books, utilize these resources, and take a step toward the freedom that you started your business to achieve. Jeff, thank you for your generosity today, man. This has been such a great conversation.
Thank you very much. And I'm excited to be back. I know that you don't do that very often, so I'm honored and blessed to be on the show twice and hopefully again.
That's right. Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.